Okay, guys, let's get right into this. I got to plug in the computer, get some power going to this thing real quick. All right, so here's basically the bottom line with this. I have a report, specifically an ROI, report of investigation. I was able to pull off the internet. It is from the Office of Inspector General, Office of Investigations. A lot of it has already been redacted. So the bottom line is I'm going to be going through with you essentially what this document shows. Now, you need to understand a couple of very important things. This document shows essentially how an investigator, a person who is part of the system, was snooping on other people. It shows that the system worked, Office of Inspector General, in finding the evidence to show that this person was abusing their government power at the federal level. It shows that, unfortunately, there are weaknesses in the system, but that ultimately they caught up and charged this individual with some pretty hefty charges. Now, with that said, I bring this to you not to show you that somebody abused the system at the federal level as a federal employee. I bring this to you because I want you to see the green light that comes from this whole document right here, which is that there's a federal system that catches and punishes bad people, including their own employees. I know that there was a lot of information that came out with Gail Ennis, prior Inspector General on behalf of the SSA, and basically there was this, people lost a little bit of faith in her ability to go ahead and be a pro-claimant individual and not somebody who would restrict whistleblowers. This report, even though it's not directly related to the SSA, but includes a different federal department and their OIG, because remember, different agencies have their own OIG. They have their own Office of Inspector General. This report shows that bad people abusing federal power in a federal position ultimately do get caught. And that's what I want to bring forward to you with this. So let's get right into it. Final little thing. Please remember to like and subscribe. Also, I just got back from vacation. I know I've said that almost every single video, and I'm in catch-up mode. Now, all the people who have had hearings this week, motions to submit, all that stuff, I haven't been in catch-up mode with them because I'm up to date. I'm on top of it. But for those individuals who reached out for me to go ahead and see if I can do like representation or, look at something for your claim or whatever, those I'm in catch-up mode. It takes me a week and a half usually to go ahead and catch those up. Tonight became a little bit I was going to say a different word, but I became kind of grumpy, sad, a little bit like, what the hell? If you reach out to the law firm, just one quick thing, requesting that I look at something and it's like, you know what I mean? And it's not where I'd represent you. It's not where you're buying an hour of time. And you're not willing to go on the live session to have me, which we'll do after this video. Then I just want to let you know, and this is super duper important, please be nice to the staff members. Because like if I have to go on there and find text messages where you're like being really mean to the staff members, that's not good because I need them to process claims and work with me and be assistants and things like that. If you have a question and you don't want to be in the live, right, and you don't want to do the hour, then you have to wait for me to find that special little moment to go ahead and respond to you. But if you respond with this anger and hate and just remember, like, the back office is not going to be very happy with not only you, but me as well, because there is a percentage of the disabled population who have some meanness in them, some aggression in them. And I understand that. I wrote to the person. I said, look, you can call back. You can call in, catch me during the 9-5, but just remember, you got to be nice when you do it. And, and I'll tell you another story. I had another person like that. And then I'm going to go directly to the article. I had another person like that who basically went ahead and demanded that I answer something, right? Demanded. And I texted him back. I was like, hey, I'm working on something right now. Just catch up with me in a couple of days after that. He's like, no, you have to answer it right now. Right now. Right? One of those sort of situations. And basically, I was like, look, I can't. Thanks so much. Blah, blah, blah. Right? And then scooch it over, put it in the bin somewhere over there. This person then went into a frantic whatever, sent a zillion text messages about how angry he was with me and da-da-da-da-da and so on and so forth. And then he marked it somehow, I don't know, in a system somewhere, that my phone call was a robocall, suspected whatever. So then for like 3 weeks thereafter, until somebody queued us off, we were marked as a law firm as suspected phone calls, like suspected robocalls, right? There is this anger, this among some of the disabled. Just be nice. I see it in the comments too. When people are just trying to beat each other up, just be nice. Just be nice. If somebody says something that you don't agree with, just be nice. You're not going to get them on your side if you're mean to them. Which brings me to my next point. If you call the law firm and you have a political agenda and you want to scream at me, but you get somebody else, when you scream at them, right, you get one of the receptionists. When you scream at them because you have a political bias towards one party or the other, and you didn't like a video I made, it's usually an individual who's on the far, far left that is screaming at one of the receptionists, okay? You take that receptionist, which ironically, the last one that called in, the receptionist is like over here on the spectrum, a left-leaning individual, and you move them one tick to the other side. So don't do that. If you're seeking somebody to agree with you politically and you have an agenda, don't do that, because then they have a bad day. You make them not appreciate their job, even though you're not even part of their job. Their job is helping disabled people, not dealing with what you want them to believe. And then you move them over 1 point. So you're not exactly achieving what you think you're achieving. So those are just some basic things. With that said, also, at the end of this week, because there are so many requests that I go ahead and review claims, work on claims, etc., we're only going to be taking 55 plus age individuals. Doesn't matter VA status, doesn't matter whatever, just 55 plus age claimants, because there's just too many for me to review otherwise. And I like to take time when I figure out if I want to rep somebody. I take at least 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes 30 to 45 minutes, and I grill the person. I want to know, is this a good claim? What's the silver bullet? What's going to hurt me? I want to know. Are they going to actually try? Are they limiting themselves? Are they claiming like, oh, I don't like doctors, so I'm never going to go to the... I want to know how their claim is. All right. I'm glad we got a chance to go ahead and basically go through some of those details. We will be doing the live directly after this video. Let's get into it. This is the report of investigation, ROI. ROI always is the report. In July of 2019, the U.S. Department of Commerce Office of Inspector General, OIG, received an initial complaint regarding, and that's redacted. Redacted, Investigations and Threat Management System, ITMS, okay, for targeting ITMS employees and conducting inappropriate office searches of department employees. Investigative steps led to additional allegations. The allegations are the following. Subject violated department policy directing non-consensual audio recordings. So basically, there was, you have to get their approval to be recorded. The person just recorded those people without them knowing. Subject carelessly handled badge and credentials for a former ITMS employee in violation of DAO 207-11, section 7.09. Subject requested emails between former employee and OIG personnel. Subject abused, redacted, position of authority with redacted Office of Enforcement Analysis, OEA, Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS. OSY inappropriately directed the suspension of security clearances of 2 NIST, redacted, for arranging an unclassified briefing against the wishes of subject and redacted OSY. Okay, so having meetings with other divisions that, they weren't supposed to. Subject misused government resources by directing ITMS personnel to transport, redacted, for personal travel in a government vehicle, right? Taking stuff in a government vehicle that wasn't supposed to be in it. Subject improperly obtained a unique flying armed number, UFAN, and ITMS has operated without a flying armed policy since, redacted. Subject created a toxic work environment. Quite a few charges, right? Subject did not follow security manager protocol. Inappropriate basis for United States Marshal Service deputation for ITMS. ITMS failed to afford the appropriate rights, warnings, or expectations of privacy to interviewees and searches of department employees. Subject routinely pulled employees' email to see if they violated non-disclosure agreements. Subject directed inappropriate searches of department employees' offices spaces. So like the person literally went to where those federal employees were working and had their areas searched. Subject directed alteration of documents. Subject committed travel fraud to redacted Virginia. So in other words, there's a lot here. It's not good. It's not good. Okay. All right, let's go through some of the basic summary details. Summary of investigative findings, investigative methodology. OIG conducted interviews of ITMS and department employees and the subject. OIG reviewed travel orders, emails, ITMS case files, ITMS case management system, CNET, and conducted an administrative search of the subject's office. OIG's findings regarding the allegations raised in this case are set forth below, along with supportive evidence. We're not going to go through all of them, but we'll go through some of them because I want you to understand how the government sees this stuff. Okay, because it'll help you better understand when the SSA with their OIG, representatives go ahead and follow you around, take photos of you, take videos of you, take audio collections of you, walk up to you, meet you, do all that stuff, get entry to your house, etc. Allegation. Subject violated department policy by directing non-consensual audio recordings. Okay. Now, these were not consensual recordings. The government didn't give them the okay to do it. When the SSA sends somebody out to go ahead and investigate you, they authorize that person to record you even without you knowing. So just, realize this is an example of a government employee abusing that option with other government employees. Department Administrative Order 207-9, Section 2 provides that under no circumstances shall a department officer or employee in the course of his official duties use electronic or mechanical devices secretly to overhear, transmit, or record telephonic or oral non-telephonic communications. Section 4 of that DAO does contain an exception to that prohibition that permits law enforcement within the department to monitor conversations with the concurrence of the appropriate legal counsel. The prohibitions of this order shall be inapplicable to monitoring conducted in the course of bona fide law enforcement activities of the department's various law enforcement offices, to wit, the Office of Security, as long as the activities that would otherwise be prohibited by this order are specifically authorized by the head of the operation unit, as defined in the DOO I-I, the mission and organization of the Department of Commerce. For the office engaged in such activities with the concurrence of the appropriate legal counsel and are conducted pursuant to and in accordance with all applicable federal laws, regulations, and attorney general guidelines. So basically, if they're investigating you and they have reason to investigate you, okay, just like with the SSA, an OIG personnel can go ahead and make a bunch of audio recordings when they come up to you. Usually they'll have two systems going on that are tied to video cameras. They almost always have two cameras working, although from some of the reports I've seen, basically one camera will usually fail during the process, but they usually have one good full camera length of when they were recording. Remember, it's hidden. You can't see it. Like these, sometimes they're hidden. Sometimes they approach you in full police garb. And so you're seeing them as like an authority figure, but you don't realize that you're being actually investigated by them. Okay. Subject was interviewed and said ITMS does not have a policy regarding covert recordings, but they do follow DAO 207-9. 3 senior attorneys within the OGC who redacted its employment law responsibilities redacted related the subject never discussed conducting non-consensual recordings with them, and they never provided guidance regarding non-consensual recording conducted for an interview in redacted or a meeting for the redacted case discussed below, as the DAO requires. So when one of these personnel tries to record you, and let's say, and here's basically the thing. Let's say that a police officer who was married but got a divorce, then gets brought on by the SSA, and that investigator wants to potentially collect things against the ex and use that against them for their disability benefits and try to get it to use it to take away the benefits. If they were not assigned to that person, which they never would be, because then there's a bias potential, then they shouldn't be taking covert recordings of them. This person did take covert recordings, so that's the problem. Okay, interview. Redacted special agent, ITMS related sometime around mid redacted, and subject went to redacted to conduct a witness interview for an investigation. SA, I said subject instructed, redacted, to covertly record the interview because subject was afraid the witness's attorney would cancel the interview if they knew it was being recorded. SA, I placed a digital recording device in a closed portfolio on the table during the interview and turned it over to subject after the interview. Once again, I placed a digital recording device in a closed portfolio on the table during the interview and turned it over to subject after the interview. Subject was interviewed and affirmed, redacted, instructed SA. One, to covertly record the interview. Subject confirmed legal counsel was not consulted prior to this covert recording because it was last minute. Although the trip to, redacted, to conduct the interview was pre-planned. Subject could not explain why the interview could not be recorded with consent from the witness. So essentially, the government wants them, if you basically have to get permission, to ask for permission to record them. Now, remember, when the police walk up to you that have been assigned from OIG and they've got their stuff on them, right? This camera here, this thing here, yada, yada. Then it becomes a question of whether or not you had noticed that you were being recorded. Because when they got a camera sitting right up here, the expectation is that you had noticed that you were going to be recorded. OIG determined subject violated department policy by directing a non-consensual audio recording without concurrence of the appropriate legal counsel. OGC affirmed subject did not consult with them. Subject stated the interview was last minute. However, it was planned trip for the purpose of conducting the interview, and subject purposely, covertly recorded the interview for fear the interviewee's attorney would cancel it. So one thing I want you to learn from this particular lesson is that if you have an attorney present, when there's some potential interview or something going on with the SSA and they record you, but they didn't have proper clearance to record you, right? In the back of their head, they're thinking, okay, the attorney is present. If I don't have clearance to record this, I have to get the permission of either the attorney or the person. But if I don't get permission, problem, how do I get it? Oh, I could covertly record them. No. So in the back of their head, they know if the attorney is present, the attorney is aware of the person's rights. And the attorney is going to be on that recording, which means when that thing shows up in court, that attorney is going to be ripping pissed and file a suit against that particular investigator. So they're worried. The investigators are like, oh, shit, I don't want my badge, my license, my this to be taken because some attorney caught me doing something wrong. So, if you have an in-person sort of meeting or whatever, it's almost always better to have an attorney present because little things like this, the investigators are thinking, I got to be careful with this. I got to be careful with what I do with that. Now, next thing. Which is why I say when you can communicate in writing to the SSA, like about your particular situation, if they're actually doing an interview or whatever, or they're trying to, review you for something, it's always best to keep it in writing. That way you can prepare your specific statements, give your responses and interrogatories, etc. That way what you intended to come out isn't what's coming out quickly from your mouth. Now, with that said, there's almost no attorneys that really represent people for OIG investigations. Very few for criminal law, very few for civil, even fewer for administrative. But bottom line is this: always send it in writing. Okay. All right. So this individual, redacted, during an investigation of the redacted, subject instructed redacted to record a technical meeting attended by 12 department employees and contractors at a redacted location in redacted state. Person said subject did not explicitly say to record it overtly or covertly, but SA1, I felt pressure from subject to get the recording done and worried about ramifications if redacted did not get the recording. SA1 placed a digital recording device in an open portfolio on the table during the meeting and covertly recorded the meeting without the knowledge of the other participants. Individual said, redacted, subsequently provided the recording to subject. I said after the recorded meeting, there was a debriefing at the Herbert C. Hoover Building, Washington, D.C., where a disagreement between subject and the redacted for the office of the secretary ensued. So, this is high-level stuff. This is D.C., office of the secretary. SA1 related subject announced that there was a recording of the meeting as if it was an aha, I have you on recording. This is a recording of government officials by government officials at a meeting at a very high level that was covertly created to abuse and use against them. Redacted. Special Agent ITMS, witness subject tell SA1 to record the meeting. Sorry, when I say SA1 or SA2, it's SA1 or SA2. So these are Special Agent 1, Special Agent 2. Okay. So if I, just keep in mind, SA1, SA2. It's not SAI. It's just my eye reading it because I'm tired. SA2, Special Agent, ITMS, witness subject tell SA1, first Special Agent, to record the meeting and had the impression it was to be recorded one way or another. Special Agent 2 describes subject's directive as very awkward and not feeling right. Special Agent 1 commented to Special Agent 2, I don't know if I like that. Special Agent 1 contacted Special Agent 2 several times with redacted uneasiness. So you can see where this is starting to internally with these government figures go to shit because they're worried that they did something illegal. Subject said redacted told Special Agent 1 to record the meeting overtly. Based on the information above, subject did not violate DAO 207-9 because redacted did not direct a covert recording and accordingly. Redacted did not need to obtain concurrence of the appropriate legal counsel. Allegation number 2. Subject carelessly handled badge and credentials for a former ITMS employee in violation of DAO 207-11, Section 7.09. DAO 207-11, Section 7.09 states, the careless handling, abuse, misuse, or intentional misrepresentation of official credentials and badges shall be cause for possible administrative or disciplinary action. During OIG's administrative search of subject's office, department badge, redacted, and credentials, redacted, for Special Agent 3, former Special Agent ITMS were found in the top cabinet behind subject's desk. They were discovered among piles of disorganized and haphazardly placed papers, notebooks, and media. Inquiries with OSY revealed the badge and credentials were reported lost by redacted ITMS. According to the report, the badge and credentials were received in the mail by redacted and held in an ITMS locked file cabinet pending SA3, Special Agent 3's separation from service. Subject was interviewed and related, redacted, never saw Special Agent 3's badge and credentials and did not know they were missing. Subject stated in redacted interview to OIG that redacted had no knowledge of the whereabouts of the badge and credentials that were found in redacted locked office. OIG's administrative search and accompanying investigation indicated the badge and credentials were possibly in subject's office for approximately 3 years. Data report missing badge and credentials filed by Special Agent 3, a space where others did not have general access. The discovery of the missing badge and credentials in subject's office indicated subject carelessly handled the badge and credentials and, redacted, should have returned them to OSY, as is the proper protocol when a law enforcement official leaves the department, all in violation of DAO 207-11, Section 7.09. So what they're saying here is government employees have a tendency of having things in their possession that are supposed to be handed over to different groups, like Trump and Biden and other presidents. Allegation number 3. Subject requested emails between former employee and OIG personnel. A review of subject's emails showed correspondence between subject and the department's Office of Privacy and Open Government, Privacy Office, redacted, wherein subject requested emails between a former ITMS special agent, a former employee, and 2 OIG Office of Investigation special agents, OI special agents. Subject said, redacted, needed to view emails pertaining to ongoing investigations of threats involving 40 or more individuals because, redacted, was not carbon copied when they were originally sent. Subject noted, redacted, received the emails, then requested emails between former employee and OI special agents and anyone in OIG. Several individuals within the privacy office were interviewed and provided an email chain involving OSY, Information Technology IT, and OGC, where IT requested an official reason to pull the email. Subject replied, the official reason for requesting the email is as a supervisor, I need the work product it contains. As a supervisor, I need the work product it contains. There's no investigation. Office of Human Resource, OHR, and Inspector General IG, OGC, or other matters. IT requested assistance from OGC. Redacted. OGC provided the subject indicated redacted request was not for an official investigation, but to obtain emails for which redacted was not carbon copied. Redacted believes subject's request was not appropriate within the principles of privacy rights, expectations, and norms to obtain unfettered access to the employee's email. Redacted thought subject would be able to identify specific search terms. Redacted suspicioned the request was actually for an official investigation based on how that office operates. Redacted speculated. Redacted supervisor. Redacted. I mean, it's just, a lot of redacted. Spoke directly with subject and then directed redacted to respond to OES. Redacted. Okay. Here's what happened. And this is what I want you to learn from this particular allegation. I think what people fear is that higher up people can go ahead and request and get away with things and obtaining things. And sometimes they can. And if they're real high up, I mean, they're in charge of the people who literally do the coding for the programs. And the codings are always doing custom program upgrades. So if they need to grab a file that has an entry in it and delete an entry or add an entry, the possibility that exists is absolutely there. It's absolutely there. Because just so you guys know, when there's like a journaled entry, like you do something, somewhere in a folder on the server is a saved document that has that journaled entry. If you can get access to that actual document, you can go ahead and erase a journaled entry. The thing is, you just want to make sure you also erase the journaled entry of you going into that document. So what can you grab from this? You can see government agents snooping by obtaining emails that they shouldn't have had access to. So when I say to you, as potentially disabled individuals watching the show, just be careful of what you put in emails. Emails, totally recoverable. Emails, phone calls, obviously, they don't always get the audio recording, but they can. Remember, it's digital. There's like no analog phone lines for the most part anymore. So the main thing is just be careful with what you put in emails. Stuff you post online, most of you are aware of that. Don't post pictures of you on a jet ski, riding a horse into the sunset, wearing a cowboy hat like you're Indiana Jones. But just remember, emails, they can get access to them. It's totally possible for them to do that. It's just not out of the realm. Okay. All right, we're going to skip to the next allegation. Allegation 4, subject abuse position of authority. Chapter 5 of CFR section 2635.704A provides that the standard that an employee has a duty to protect and conserve government property and shall not use such property or allow its use for other than authorized purposes. Chapter 5 of CFR section 2635.101B provides general principles that apply to every employee. Subsection B9 of this section states that employees shall protect and conserve federal property and shall not use it for other than authorized activities. Subsection B14 of the same section states that employees shall endeavor to avoid any action creating the appearance that they are violating the law or the ethical standards set forth in this part. Whether particular circumstances create an appearance that the law of these standards have been violated shall be determined from the perspective of the reasonable person with knowledge of the facts. DAO 207-11, Section 7.1 states, the form CD-277, credentials, and badge shall be used only for official law enforcement, investigations, and liaison duties, and not for transacting personal or non-official business or for any purpose other than specified in this order. And now we get to what the person did. Redacted Part 1. Special Agent 4, ITMS related sometime between redacted, subject informed, redacted, was asked to leave a meeting with redacted. Bunch of redacted. Bottom line is this. OEA was asked to find out what occurred in the meeting after subject left. Special Agent 4 related subject read the first 2 lines of 18 U.S.C. 1001. False statements to redacted OEA and explained it was criminal to lie to a federal law enforcement officer. SA4 said subject displayed redacted credentials in an unprofessional manner close to redacted's OEA's face, was confrontational, and demanded to know what was discussed in the meeting after redacted was asked to step out. OEA affirmed subject was asked to leave the meeting by redacted, and subject subsequently confronted that redacted person. OEA confirmed subject displayed redacted law enforcement badge and credentials and demanded to know what was discussed in the meeting after redacted was told to leave. OEA could not remember if subject cited false statements to a law enforcement officer as criminal offense, but such subject's actions were inappropriate and felt that subject abused redacted position as a law enforcement officer to pressure or bully redacted into relating what was discussed in the meeting after subject was excused, especially since it was likely not for law enforcement purposes. Subject also instructed redacted OEA not to discuss an investigation into the redacted with anyone other than subject, to include subject supervisors. OEA felt subject supervisors were not able to manage subject and said subject exuded an I'm in control attitude. So, do these groups have cowboys in them? Yeah. Yeah, they have cowboys. Do they have to excuse them from the room and then have a discussion about the cowboy? Yeah, they do. Absolutely. 5 allegations. OSY inappropriately directed the suspension of security clearances of 2 NIST for arranging an unclassified briefing against the wishes of subject and OSY. Let's go to next one. I just want to give you these real quick. Last one's long. Okay. Allegations. Subject misused government resources by directing ITMS personnel to transport redacted for personal travel in a government vehicle. Several witnesses related subject attended classes at redacted on personal time, but that redacted had ITMS personal drive redacted to the airport in a government vehicle at that redacted flew armed without a flying armed policy in effect. A review of subject's personnel and training file and information received from redacted department's project and administrative management division revealed subject attended one redacted course at redacted in that it was paid for by the department. However, subject was interviewed and affirmed redacted also attended classes at redacted sometime between redacted for redacted degree program and that these classes were not paid for with department funds. Subject said redacted flew to redacted 3 to 4 times for redacted degree program, which was not funded by the department, and that redacted ITMS gave redacted rides to the airport in a government vehicle. So basically, abusing government funds in transportation form. Allegation number 7. Subject improperly obtained a unique flying arm number. UFAN and ITMS has operated without a flying arm policy since redacted. Okay, so basically flew with something in his pocket that he shouldn't have. Allegation. Subject created toxic work environment. This should be interesting to see how they wrote this up. Number 8, several former ITMS SA complained they were targeted by subject for questioning policy, authority, and practices. Interviewees related subjects stovepiped everything, discouraged thinking out of the box and proactive initiatives, and instituted discipline for simply making contacts outside ITMS without redacted approval. Several individuals interviewed expressed concern about retaliation from subject for providing information for this investigation based upon their past experiences with subject. The following individuals told OIG during interviews the subject disciplined them or fired them for questioning redacted's management and rules. Complainant filed a redacted complaint against subject, which was substantiated. According to interviews and documents reviews, while complaints was on redacted, subject searched redacted office for case notes. During the office search, subject found a classified disk and reported it to security, but it was deemed not to be a security violation. Subject then searched complainant's email for the case notes, discovered evidence of an all-day meeting, redacted, believed complainant attended, compared the date of the 2 meetings to WebTA, and noted complainant did not take leave for the meeting. When the complainant returned from redacted, subject confiscated redacted badge and gun and put redacted on administrative tasks. Complainant attested redacted, uploaded redacted notes to CNET prior to going redacted, and subject could have accessed them there. Complainant stated that the all-day meeting was with the redacted and was for information sharing of similar cases. Complainant said subject had directed ITMS agents to reach out to this agency for assistance with these particular cases. Subject was interviewed and cited for the following issues with complainant. Complainant had an angry outburst over something another complainant wanted to do regarding a case review. Discrepancies between what complainant put in redacted daily activity report and what was noted in CNET. Complainant prior to redacted drafted an affidavit for a search warrant and was setting up a meeting with the assistant U.S. attorney without a supervisor review. Subject felt misled because complainant indicated the meeting with the AUSA has not happened, but subject believed it had already happened. Complainant attended the meeting at redacted without informing subject, same meeting above noted. Complainant prior to redacted did not provide subject with FBI correspondence regarding a case of subject requested. Complainant allegedly left a classified disk in plain view while on redacted, which subject found during the above noted search. Subject reported it to the security, and security determined no security violation occurred. Okay. What should you learn from this, right? What is the overall idea here? There are individuals who people fear in OIG, in these investigative units. And the problem is when they get enough power, they get high enough up. Some of these people bloom into amazing managers. Some of them bloom into cowboys, aggressive in nature, threatening people, all that kinds of stuff. This reminds me of that New York governor that they had, the Italian gent, who had the giant bridge named after him, who basically was abusive in nature with a lot of the statements he was making and things that he was doing. As a result of this, um, this person obviously got multiple charges against them, and yeah, I'm sure that kind of ended that person's career. What I want you to gather from this is understanding that as you go through this process, you want to always look for little things that could potentially have been used. Oh yeah, I have yellow stuff all over my hands from that foam that expands. So what happens is basically when you have these investigators doing stuff, look for small little things that they could have done that makes it wrong for how they were doing it. Slightest, the smallest little thing. It could be how they move the evidence. It could be how they're communicating with you when they're communicating. It could be the types of equipment they were using for recording you. It could be, the style of how they were approaching you. It could be the timing of when they did things. They could have come up to you knowing that somebody had just died in your family. You weren't thinking straight. You were in a state of duress, and they gained access to your home through you as a result of that. Look at the little details if you want to defend yourself, because those are the little things that are going to help define whether or not the investigator did things properly and whether or not you can go ahead and get a reduction of what evidence is going to be used against you. So, I thought this was an interesting study because it showed essentially somebody who is part of the system that usually does investigations, investigating and getting in huge trouble. With that said, um, I will say this. I think there is a problematic bias from a lot of the people I see commenting on OIG and investigations. A lot of people in the comments will say OIG has no money to investigate people. That is not accurate. They are specially funded through Congress specifically for their activities. So, one of the things you have to keep in mind is that if somebody, like one of these commenters, doesn't interact with people who have investigations currently going on, then in their mind, they don't actually occur. But I can tell you, a lot of people do those little 1 hours where they hire me to look at something, figure it out, and then walk them through what the response should potentially be, as somebody who doesn't represent them before the SSA, but is guiding them, without filing 1696 or doing any of that stuff. So as a result of it, the main thing here is that these things happen a lot. And as a result of that, I think that they're going to pick up in nature. I think that realistically, for example, if Donald Trump gets in, I expect OIG to be even more busy than they normally are because, the Republican agenda is to not spend as much on SSA administration, catch the fraudsters, and significantly reduce essentially the amount of overpayments that are due back to the SSA. And I think that if we get Harrison, we're going to have kind of the same thing we had through Biden. There's going to be some blind eye tendencies. There's going to be some, who do we really want to go after? Who do we not want to go after? So those sorts of games. It is interesting that the head of OIG was just pressured to retire. That means the SSA contains both the commissioner of the Democratic Party, which is Martin O'Malley, who I'm a big fan of, and also a opening spot, which may not get filled, which can be just as nefarious, which may not get filled before basically the election. So as a result of that, you have the person who's in charge of the SSA, and then you have the person that is the, I guess you would call it warden, the top cop, if you will, of the SSA, which is the Inspector General, who are both Democrat appointed specific individuals. The one thing I worry about when it comes to this stuff is Social Security number abuse. We don't really have any way as civilians to access information on Social Security number abuse in any real detail. And when it comes to SSA numbers being created, For non-existent citizens, we have no info. We have nothing. We have literally, like, the senators would need to investigate it, and they don't. It's kind of weird. So one of the things that I think we all need to be aware of is how important a social security number is. So a social security number, when it comes to investigations, that's what they tie you to, right? Your entire life is stuck to that number. But that number opens as an American citizen or somebody with a green card or somebody who's going through naturalization a lot of doors to services that normally you wouldn't get if you were here illegally. My whole thing is this: if we were to really want to drill down and find specifically any potential problems, I think we need to have OIG work with the senators to investigate themselves, the SSA, and their policy for who actually has a valid social security number. I don't know exactly how we would do this, but I would like to see a new number, in addition to the social security number, be attached to every living person. And it has to be a string code that's very, very detailed, not something you can memorize, something that is a very long string code. The reason why is that, unfortunately, if you have a social security number, and here's the thing: I've seen dealers abuse and use other people who are on disability benefits so that they can force them to give their monthly check over, so that they can force them to sell their home, all that kinds of stuff. Okay. So I've seen that. And my big thing is this: the disabled are a very unique, specific group that can be tricked, if you will, into going ahead and, handing over things that are not normally handed over. So social security numbers, if you have them, you can take out loans against your name. You can take out loan, and it's really against your social security number. You can, sell things on your behalf. You can, get bank information, open accounts. So one of the main ways that, things occur is through that social security number. And I think one of the big problems that we don't have is a proper system that really spends time constantly scanning every single day who's alive and who's not alive. Would you guys be for or against a system that investigates the SSA's social security number, current list, where every year you had to provide like a proof of life sort of thing? Something where basically you had to, somehow provide that you were alive, well, that you were under your own functional capacity, and that, you can go ahead and state that you are here. Because the problem is, we don't know who's really there and not. Think about it. A lot of the OIG things that I've studied, that I've looked at, a lot of them are where the kids of parents kept saying that their deceased parent was still alive, and they weren't. And so one of the big problems is that kid keeps getting a check, getting a check, getting a check. And then the SSA finally catches up and realizes, oh, wait, this person died 7 years ago. This person died 4 years ago. And so what happened to that social security number during that time? How many extra times did they vote? And, the main way that they catch them is that that person is not using their Medicare card, right? They're not using their health insurance to go get treatment. And when somebody gets to be like 92 and they're not using their health insurance, unlikely, very unlikely. So my point is, and I think, yeah, there you go. Rodeo clown Obama just quoted, "I thought that was the job of the IRS." Well, no, that's really the job of the SSA. And we can put a lot of the IRS has to figure that out, but the actual list, the actual program, the system, the internal profiles, that's at the SSA. The IRS is more about who's going to receive their check, who owes us money, stuff like that, and they do a lot of the US, Treasury transactions. But no, at the end of the day, it's the Social Security Administration that is in control of those specific lists. So my thing is, I think we need to figure out a system where the SSA has to investigate itself and it has to be overseen by actual citizens. And the idea is that we need to know if people are still alive. We need to know certain biofactors that would say that they're still present, right? Because you can have people who have passed away, you can have people who have moved out of the country and have nothing to do with the U.S. anymore, and we can't find them, we don't know what's going on, but yet they're still using their social security number to take out loans, even though they're not actually taking out those loans. So we, I think, need an investigation system into that. And I think OIG is the best place to do that to start. But then, of course, something has to oversee them with their investigation. So, yeah. Rodeo Clown said, "You are not a name, you are a number." And that's true. That's true. I mean, you have both inside the SSA system, but ultimately, you are a number. And let's see. G. Moore said, "Walter, what you're suggesting seems like a new world government." That's kind of a big thing. That's like we would have to figure out everybody everywhere. I'm not saying new world government. I'm saying like new USA assessment on how many of these social security numbers are accurate. They're tied to a real human being. You know what I mean? Because like think about it. Like, all right, let's say this. Okay. What is more harmful? And this is just a question I think you guys should consider. Somebody who has a fake social security number that's tied to a person that's just not available. And that person uses that social security number to pass a vote, right, for a particular party. Could be either one, doesn't matter. Do you think that's more harmful, or do you think what's more harmful is that a person uses that social security number to take out a loan of $100,000, and then that person, creates documentation to show that that person was now deceased, so therefore those $100,000 are never going to get paid back? What do you think is more harmful? Right? Both harmful, but an interesting question. Um, G Moore, I do get your intentions, but man, you're a lawyer. You should know more than us what you're suggesting. Well, no, I don't think I think it's new territory. We're all kind of like figuring this out together as to what we're going to do with social security numbers being abused. Because I see it. I see it with the dealers that are in Central Florida and how they basically hook these individuals on, drugs. And then they go ahead and manipulate them, take out bank loans against them. The major thing that I saw was the abuse with the whole COVID loans and stuff like that. But no, I don't think I personally, so Lovejoy, I personally think you're converting the message of a proper checks and balances system to hopefully ensure minimal victims. Well, the idea is we don't want people to become tools or weapons to be used against our own system. Because remember, the Social Security number, that is, yes, a golden ticket to America, but it's also a cannon to our system, a lightning bolt to an electrical system that has to function properly. It's both. And my point is, we need to have something that validates people a hell of a lot better than we do. Like biomarkers, like, you have a phone and you put your thumb on it and that equates to boop, that's you. So and I think people would also say, oh, and that's the whole, like the New World Order thing. Let me tell you something. So you guys know I'm a Mason, a shitty one at that, because I never show up to lodge. I don't show up to the bigger buildings either, which is like your, like your Scottish Rite and your, all that jazz. So, but the point is, part of that study is an analysis of what a new world order would be, what a bigger government would be. And I will tell you this. I think that at the end of the day, we have not figured out how to magically manage one company, one country. So to apply this attempt to magically manage all these other countries with a very imperfect system still would fail horribly. Some countries are better at managing, right, their own governments and the people than other countries. You can measure this by the government's ability to tax the shit out of its citizens and the citizens being willing to put up with it. You ever think about that? Like, how do you measure how well government can abuse its people? So abuse is measured in a lot of ways, but the main thing is taxation, because if you tax them a lot, you essentially reduce their standard of living, which is one of the highest forms of abuse you can do. I mean, you can throw them in prison. That's horrible too, right? You have stuff like that in China. You have stuff like that in, parts of Africa. You have stuff like that in Haiti. But realistically, if you want to do massive across the spectrum, right, across the spectrum abuse of, American citizens, you just tax the hell out of them. America has some of the highest taxes when it comes to, certain income levels across the board for the type of nation that it is. Remember, if we go back to the tea situation where they're throwing the tea overboard, that was over like an itty bitty tax. Now people are taxed ridiculously large amounts. I was reading an article. Yeah, it sounds like France. Yeah. I was reading an article about the different countries. I was trying to line it up as to how much Social Security taxes were taken out for each and every country. And, they're around 11, 12%, that kind of thing. And what I've realized is that we need socialism for some things, because Americans are bad at saving. And Americans are horrible now with credit cards because we can't afford anything, because the inflation has been far worse than the government is willing to explain. And so as a result of that, what's really scary going forward is that inflation is a tax, right? Because every dollar that we have, piece of paper in our pocket, it becomes worth less in its actual expenditure when we have inflation, which is the form of a tax. Like every time inflation occurs and it's bad, especially bad, we are taxed very heavily on that same dollar. So if you wanted to significantly reduce the standard of living, you would just have inflation, which is the form of a new tax, which burdens Americans even more. And what most Americans are hitting on right now before the election cycle is that basically there's so much debt sitting on each and every American's shoulders that those Americans, they could never pay the debt of the federal government of what they borrowed against us. My point to that is it ties into this bigger idea of how we as an American society have to have some checks and balances, a little bit more aggressive on essentially how they're abusing the Social Security number. We are that number, right? So if we're a Social Security number and they're putting a debt on our head of 100,000, 50,000, 200,000, whatever, what say did you have on them borrowing more money? Well, it's because you voted in individuals that then voted in more, expenditures, so on and so forth, right? It's not you, it's the people you voted in that allowed themselves to reduce your standard of living. Now, my thing is this. I don't think we have our baseline protected, and our baseline are the Social Security numbers. And yeah, there's people like this, right? There's people like this, yeah, who are going to go ahead and be cowboys, and they're going to record people inappropriately, illegally, unconstitutionally. They're going to go ahead and pressure and bully people inappropriately, unconstitutionally, sure. But at the foundation of what I read to you here is one theme. One theme. It's that one person was able to use government-bred authority, right? That authority wouldn't exist without the government giving it to that person. And that authority was used to leach out into other people who have a Social Security number. And the protections of those people with those Social Security numbers were violated because a higher authority didn't have enough checks and balances throughout the process. Take that to a lower level and think about what potential abuses are being caused to the average citizen. Take that to an even lower level and what potential abuses are happening to the retired and the disabled with OIG. Because remember, those are special class individuals, elderly, retired, disabled, SSIers, SSDIers, right? That's a special class, right? That's a group of people who can more easily be attacked and not return an attack to defend themselves. So I think that at the end of the day, I saw a comment here, P. Atlantis, inflation also steals money from the rich. Yes, it does. But the intended effect is not the same. And I want to just make a real quick point because you said that. When the rich want to remove other people from something they're doing, they increase the cost of entry and the cost to continue to sit in the room. So, for example, if you have an island, right, and that island has a bunch of mansions on it, and the prices of those mansions go way up, right, impossible figures to pay. That, even though it costs the rich significantly more to buy into that club, and yes, it's taking more money from them, it affects them less because they've created a new subculture where they're special. And remember, when it comes to being rich, the most important rule about that social security number, that rich person, is that if they want that social security number to be unique, special, retain its benefits as a rich person, then they have to make sure that they continuously close out the club to members who they don't want in it. And there's a billionaires club, and there's a 500 millionaires club, and there's a 250 millionaires club, 100 millionaires club, 50 millionaires club, 10 millionaires club, etc. And so at each level of this system, right, there's a group that was created. And then the thing is, as people raise into higher groups, their geographic area where they live, they try to raise the standards of financial, amount of bags of money, like people who are more rich. They try to raise the standard and get more super rich to move to their area. The super rich have no problem with inflation because they just pass on whatever their company makes and make it more expensive for you to buy. They actually like inflation because at the end of the day, it makes them more special because fewer people can be part of the same groups that they are. They can't go to the same clubs. They can't live in the same zip code. The rich, as you probably have realized, do not want poor people around them. Poor people, compared to the rich, are, to be fair, just to be fair, are a liability. When you're rich, life, right, is in a different category. Not a popular thought, but a very provable belief. Because when you're rich, right, you're not going to go running into a burning house to save a baby because your life in your head has more value because you have money to go ahead and give it more potential value here, achievement there, whatever, right? And that's why you see the rich always buying these islands or houses on these islands that you and I can't get to. We can't fly into them. We can't even boat to them. It's a restricted entry. The point is that I make with this stuff, and I think it's important. Then we're going to switch over to the next video. Maybe we'll do the Trump video next, and then we'll go live. But the point is with this whole thing, and I think it's important, we are now coming out of the inflation that was created by COVID. I am curious to see if you guys think that we will have more inflation going forward under the Harris administration if she's voted to be president that will be similar to Biden. I don't think it will be, but I think that the high levels, okay, so Shadow wants to go. I think the high levels of spending will go ahead and continue to some degree. I think a lot of spending will be spent on green energy ideas. I think a lot of spending will be spent on immigration. I think that'll be kind of like the agendas. But I don't think a lot of spending will be specifically for saving the petrodollar. And if we don't save the petrodollar, then we don't have international strength. If we don't have international strength, then we won't have the ability to take out loans as Americans because people won't be buying our currency in other countries to spend and buy other stuff, reserve currency. So again, the protection of the American and that social security number, not only from people who are other Americans, but also from the agents of the United States federal government. Super important. Yep. So that's the video we're going to be talking about, LC. All right. Let me go take Shadow out real quick. Then I'll come back and do the video for Donald Trump on him potentially wanting to get rid of a massive tax on the elderly. I know this was a cool little explanation video. We get to think about things. I get to read your responses, which is awesome. I will catch you guys at the next video, and then we'll go live directly after that. All right. See you soon, about 10, 15 minutes. Let me go take Shadow out, and I'll be right back. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you soon. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.